Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Corps has, in aggregate, about a $40 billion critical infrastructure backlog. That would include locks, dams, jetties, et cetera. And we're about $6 billion in deficit on harbor maintenance. So this bill will go a long way toward addressing at least part of the problem, which is harbor maintenance. Now, we spend a lot of time here, fighting over where and how we might find the money to fund critical projects. Yesterday, we were talking about transit. Obviously, in the surface bill, it was highways and transit and more. In this case, we actually have a revenue source. The fact is that every year that revenue source brings in substantially more money than is spent as the harbor maintenance backlog grows, because the money is only supposed to be spent on harbor maintenance. However, it is appropriated elsewhere. I started actually working on this issue with the former chairman, Bud Schuster, back in '96. And finally, in this bill, we will come to fruition. By 2027, we will move the entire harbor maintenance trust fund and the annual cash flow off budget. And it will then be available to be spent for the only purpose for which it is legally authorized, as opposed to wherever else it goes into the maw of the federal government, or so-called sometimes deficit reduction today. So I think that's a tremendous step forward. We clarified something. We often seem as that we have to clarify things with the Corps and the trolls at OMB. We put a 10% figure in the last WRDA bill as a set-aside for small and emerging harbors. They tried to interpret that as a cap and not a floor. We make it very clear in this bill, A, we make it permanent, and B, we make it explicit that it's a floor, not a cap. Floor, not a cap, if you're listening down there at the Corps of Engineers or at OMB. It also has language in the bill which I think is very critical, to have a comprehensive federal assessment of all our breakwaters and jetties. We really, anecdotally, many of us who represent coastal areas or inland ports can talk about the needs we know of, but there is no real comprehensive assessment out there. So we need that. Many of these are in very poor condition and failing, and we need to know what the magnitude of that problem is. We've created sort of a workaround for the ridiculous ban on earmarks. For the life of me, I still don't understand why people would prefer to let unappointed federal officials, particularly this administration, decide where money is spent, as opposed to elected members of Congress who know their needs better than others. Unfortunately, that is currently the policy of the majority party. So we have sort of a workaround in this bill. The Corps didn't do so well in the first iteration. They're doing better now. And we will continue with this lame workaround until we get real and go back to allowing earmarks that have been thoroughly, publicly vetted and tested, preferably through a public process and hearings, not inserted in the dark of night, which caused the last controversy. But for now, this is the best we can do. So I strongly recommend this bill to my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now recognize Ranking Member Napolitano for a statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for remaining steadfast in your commitment to introduce and mark up 5303.